This is the chapter where a lot of the secrets come together and we find out who the heir of Slytherin is and what the heck has been going on this whole book. Oh gosh, Voldemort is... I gotta pick up the rant stick for this. This is so interesting. Harry gets the diary, he has the Basilisk fang, and he's like... Hello everybody, welcome back to Muggles and Mocha. And we are here, guys. Like, we're at the end of the book. We have 2 more chapters left to cover. And honestly, these chapters are a bit intimidating to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm always sad when we get to the end of the books, or if there's just a lot of heavy material that we're going to be talking about. It's probably a mixture of both. But I'm gonna do my best to just make these videos and articles just like really in depth and covering all of this awesome stuff that we get to talk about. So yay, we are getting close to the end of book 2. But before we get started, welcome new people. If you have stumbled upon this video, you are currently in our Harry Potter book club, which is connected to my editing website, MadisonKdarby.com. We're going through all of the Harry Potter books, 1 chapter at a time, and it's super fun. I have social media that you can follow through the website, or I also have them in the description box below. We have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so yeah, you can follow one of those and keep up with all of our news that we have going on here. We get this awesome picture for chapter 17 of the diary getting stabbed, and we're going to be talking about that, and Tom Riddle, the Basilisk, Ginny. Oh my gosh, like, this is the chapter where a lot of the secrets come together and we find out who the heir of Slytherin is and what the heck has been going on this whole book. At the beginning of this chapter, we get our first look at the Chamber of Secrets, which, man, like, how full of himself was Salazar Slytherin? Like, we know that the other founders made objects, you know, so you have the diadem of Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff's cup, the sword of Godric Gryffindor, which is going to be popping up in this chapter as well. But then Slytherin just has to go above and beyond. Like, he has a couple of artifacts, and then a whole chamber with a huge statue of himself in it, and a monster, like, dude. Harry sees Ginny, who is unconscious, and then he meets the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Marvolo Riddle. And what's horrible is that Harry still trusts in Tom Riddle, but as we've talked about, if you're in Harry's shoes, you know, Harry already relates to this kid and feels like he understands the motivations behind what Riddle did with turning in Hagrid. Like, he thinks it was out of desperation to keep the school open, you know, that he doesn't want to go back home, which Harry can definitely identify with. And then he also views Tom Riddle as like a respectable student. He knows that he was a prefect. He knows that he won an award for special services to the school, and, you know, that he was admired. The way that we see Armando Dippet talk to Tom Riddle says a lot about who Tom Riddle is and what the teachers thought of him. So, you know, I don't really blame Harry here for immediately thinking that maybe Tom Riddle is trying to help, but it does take Harry a second to catch on. Like, Tom Riddle steals his wand and is giving him what I imagine to be just a very, like, creepy smile. But Harry steadily connects the dots, and we find out what happened to Ginny Weasley. And as I mentioned last week, I was sent a question by Mia about Ginny and Harry, and it was all about, you know, what are the differences between what Harry experienced with the diary and Ginny? Like, what did they see? What did Ginny see? And was it similar to what Harry went through with his adventure with the diary? Now, to start, I want to go ahead and say that I think that Ginny and Harry's experiences were very different, and I'm going to go into that in this video and talk about what Ginny Weasley saw or heard or learned from Tom Riddle during her first year at Hogwarts, which, man, what a terrible first year. To start, I do want to say that I think Tom Riddle's goals were different when it comes to Harry and Ginny. For Harry, we know that he saw a memory. He physically, I think his body was gone in the diary, but anyway, he saw a memory of Tom Riddle's and was there. He wasn't really interacting with the people in the memory, but it was a lot about like scenes that we see later on in the books when Harry goes into the Pensieve and he's just like a bystander, a fly on the wall who's witnessing something happen within a memory from the past. And by doing this, Tom was trying to convince him of something. You know, he showed him Hagrid on purpose and showed Tom Riddle in a good light because he wanted Harry to think that Hagrid was responsible for opening the chamber, that Riddle could be trusted, because in the end we find out that Tom Riddle wanted to meet Harry. He wanted him to come down into the chamber, so he was kind of doing whatever he could to make Harry trust him and throw him off of the trail of the real heir of Slytherin, to kind of give him a little bone to chase after. For Ginny, her experience was more of a slow play possession. And I don't think that Tom Riddle was actually revealing things to her like he did for Harry. He was wanting to use her to accomplish his mission. So here's what we know about that from this chapter of the book. Ginny saw Tom as a confidant. She told him all of her worries and struggles, and Tom tells us that he was kind and sympathetic and wrote back to her. And at that point, I think that was literally all he was doing. That Ginny would write to him and he would write back to her. So what I'm saying by that is that I don't think that there was ever a point that Ginny was taken into the diary like Harry was, and that she was in a place where she and Tom Riddle were face to face talking with each other or anything. I think it was just literally she thought that she had a diary that was writing back to her, and she started to tell him more and more about herself and really just rely on him as, you know, an emotional support, really. This is when we have some dark stuff going on. Some dark magic. Riddle says that he grew strong off of a diet of her deepest fears and darkest secrets, and just, oh gosh, Voldemort is, He says that after a time, he started pouring his secrets back to her. And here, and this is my opinion, that I've just gathered based on, you know, the realm that we're in, the dark magic we're working with, and what Riddle says. I don't think that he was literally telling Ginny secrets, as in like letting her know about the Chamber of Secrets, that he's the heir of Slytherin, all about basilisks and how to control it and what to do. No, I think it's all about him pouring himself into her, as in possession. And I hate to group Horcrux magic together, but honestly, like, Horcruxes and what they're able to do are so obscure. And I think that what's happening with this diary is all connected to Horcrux magic, if you will. We see later in the books the effects that Horcruxes can have on people, such as the locket with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Like, it affects them emotionally, physically, and I think the same is true with this Horcrux as well. But I think that this Horcrux is particularly unique, and that's not just because it was the first one, although I think that is so cool that we're dealing with Voldemort's first Horcrux right now. Like, what a momentous occasion. This Horcrux is really special because it was meant to be used as a weapon, as well as being used as a Horcrux to hold part of Voldemort's soul. Like, he didn't intend for it to just sit there and be a protective measure for him to live forever. He also wanted it to be put in action. Because of that, this Horcrux has a certain mission it's trying to accomplish. And I think that part of that means that the curse that is on this Horcrux also has imbued it with certain abilities so that it can accomplish that goal. And it seems like Voldemort's soul grew stronger off of the things that Ginny was writing to him. He was able to grow strong off of her emotions and take advantage of that. And through that, I think that he was also able to get a foothold in her being, so that he could possess her. And you know, when I say this out loud, it's not that surprising to me, because we know that Voldemort is very skilled at this type of magic, especially when he gets older. Like, we already know that he's manipulative and charming as a child. Like, he's able to use that to get people to do what he wants. But later, I think that he was able to use these abilities magically to possess people. Like, we know that's something that Voldemort is very skilled at. I mean, look at Quirrell from book 1. From Quirrell's history, we know that when he found Voldemort, he tried to resist him or fight back against him, but that Voldemort was just too strong for him, is what we learn. So I think that in the first book, that Quirrell is not acting of his own will. I think that Voldemort is possessing him and controlling him, because that is a magic that he's perfected over his years of becoming a wizard. So I think that that was like a key part of the magic that he put into this diary, that he would be able to control whoever gave him the power to control them. And we do have some evidence from that here in this chapter as well. You know, Riddle says that Ginny didn't realize what she was doing at first. She was blacking out and Riddle was acting through her. There's never an instance where she like has flashbacks and remembers what she did. It's all about just like the evidence that is surrounding her when she wakes up. So I think that it is purely that Riddle is acting through her and possessing her during these times. Then we know that she got rid of the diary and then realized that Harry had it and stole it back. And at that point, Riddle says that he made her do things and that she struggled and cried. So with her, I don't think it was convincing that he was sitting here like, you have to do this or else. I think that he was, like he says, making her do things because he was able to control her and possess her at that point in time. So, in conclusion, I don't think Ginny ever saw anything from the diary like in the way that Harry did. I think it was mostly her making this thing her confidant and just emotional support and pouring her heart into it, which gave Riddle the power and the diary the power to do what it was meant to do in the first place. So that is my answer about what poor Ginny Weasley experienced with this diary. So Tom goes on to confess that it was him 50 years ago who opened the Chamber of Secrets, and he's gloating because this is what he always wanted. Like, we're going to talk about the diary some more. I think that the diary, its mission was twofold. One, I mean, I know that he wanted to continue Salazar Slytherin's noble work or whatever and attack Muggleborns, but I also think Voldemort wanted people to know that he opened the Chamber of Secrets. Like, at the time that he was opening it, he was 16 years old. He hadn't made a name for himself. Everyone thought that he was just a good guy still at this point. So he couldn't take credit for opening the Chamber of Secrets without it ruining his future and, you know, making it so he wouldn't be able to do all of the evil things that he gets to do later in his life. But he's really bitter about that. And he's bitter in the way that he talks about Hagrid. You know, he brings up that, you know, Hagrid was framed for opening the Chamber of Secrets, and he's almost mad that people would think that Hagrid was smart enough to do something like this, something that took him 5 years of work to do. So, you know, people knowing that Tom Riddle was responsible was really important to him. But then this book takes yet another turn. I mean, it's already horrible what Riddle is doing, but he turns the subject to Harry and his defeat of Lord Voldemort. That is when we find out that this dude is young Voldemort. And what a twist. Like, I've talked about this before, but this is another one of those times that I was really young when I read this book. And honestly, I cannot remember what I felt when I read it or how much I even comprehended of what I was reading. It's a tragedy. I wish I could remember being surprised. As Voldemort goes on, we find out more about his background and his views on his past, especially his father and mother. And okay, like, I hate Voldemort, y'all know he's evil, I think he's despicable, but I love talking about him and really diving into his motivations and just how he became the person he is or was. Whatever. I really like looking into that stuff. And something that was huge in Voldemort's past was his father and mother. As we already know, like, Voldemort cares a lot about blood status and people's past and, you know, their families and where they came from. And it was the same with him. When he first finds out that he's a wizard, he believes that his dad was the one who was the wizard because, this is sad, but he thinks that his mother would not have died, would not have been so powerless and left him in this situation if she had been a witch. So that means when he finds out that his dad was actually the Muggle, it's devastating to him. Not really devastating in the way I would usually think. Like, I don't think he was sitting there sobbing about it, but devastating in the way that he viewed himself, and his perception of where he had come from and what that meant for him. And actually, a very, very fun fact, one of my favorite fun facts that I have ever found, is that the summer after Riddle opened the Chamber of Secrets, you know, let out the Basilisk, killed Moaning Myrtle, all of that. That summer is when he goes and he kills his father and his grandparents, his last connection to the Muggle world. And I like to think that Tom's discovery of his background, of his dad's identity, was one of the driving factors that led him to open the Chamber of Secrets and embrace his ancestry as being a descendant of Salazar Slytherin, accepting his hatred of Muggles and Muggleborns. And I don't know, I like to think that him finding out about who his dad really was and the story of what actually happened to his family was something that was that pushed him toward opening the Chamber of Secrets and all of this. But as Tom Riddle talks, Harry is still just like putting up a fight vocally, and he puts Dumbledore against Voldemort, saying that Voldemort was always too afraid to go against Dumbledore, even in his later years, which is true. And this loyalty to Dumbledore summons Fawkes the Phoenix. Woo! And Fawkes brings the Sorting Hat with him, which even now reading this, I'm like, what is happening here? Like, here's a question. Did Dumbledore leave Fawkes instructions or something? Like, how did Fawkes know to do this? Not to come to Harry's aid, because I think that Dumbledore and Fawkes have such a connection that loyalty to Dumbledore manifests in loyalty to Fawkes, and like, there's a connection there magically somehow, where I'm not surprised that Fawkes came. I'm surprised that he brought the Sorting Hat, or knew to do that. Like, does Fawkes just know? I don't know much about the intelligence of phoenixes. And you know, I researched phoenixes a while ago and I didn't see anything about that in it. So I don't know if Fawkes is like sentient. Like, did he know that pulling out the Sword of Godric Gryffindor would have been a thing? What do you think? How did Fawkes know to do this? Did Dumbledore leave instructions? Is it just luck? What is it? Let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, Voldemort just wants to know more about himself, which, you know, like, what is surprising there? He wants to know what happened with Harry. How did Harry beat the greatest wizard of all time? Like, what went down? And Harry tells him, and Voldemort ends up saying that he wanted to know. Oh my gosh, y'all. I gotta pick up the rant stick for this. This is so interesting. So, he wanted to know because he wanted to identify if there was something special, his word, about Harry. Something special that would have brought him to beat Voldemort. The thought of being unique and special is something that we see that is important to Dumbledore from like the first moment Dumbledore meets him. When he's an 11-year-old kid, he talks about that. So the thought that Harry could have been more special than him was like threatening. And he just had to know, like, was Harry better than him, more powerful, whatever? And I just think that that is such an interesting thing to think about in a time like this. But then we get into the action. The Basilisk is here. It comes out. Fawkes blinds it, and I'm glad that that works because I'm wondering what exactly petrifies these people. You know, they can't catch like a full-on glimpse of the snake. And I think that I've always kind of thought that just like seeing the snake's body too would petrify them. Like if someone came up on the basilisk from behind and didn't see its face, that they would still get petrified. But I guess it's just the eyes, like that they all saw reflections, or just like, you know, not a full-on blast, but they still caught a glimpse of the eyes because its eyes are all bloody now, and Harry is able to look at it. So Harry asks for help, puts on the sorting hat, and what do you know? The sword of Godric Gryffindor just comes out. And I hate to say this, but this video, as you probably have already seen, is going a bit long because there's a lot to talk about. So we will be talking more about the sword of Godric Gryffindor in the next chapter. Harry stabs it in the head with the sword. We don't get as much of a chase scene in the book as we get in the movie. I really like how the movie did it. It's fun, Harry like running through the pipes and the Basilisk coming after him. Harry is victorious over the Basilisk. He does get stuck with a fang and is dying, but Fawkes heals him with his tears, and Riddle is so blinded by his own pride and arrogance that he forgets about the potential of phoenixes. And I feel like Phoenix tear healing is a hard thing to forget. So yeah, Tom Riddle is just really just messing up big time here. Then Fawkes saves the day again. Like, okay, he comes in the first place. I'm gonna count that as a win. He brings the sorting hat, which has the sword of Godric Gryffindor in it. So second thing that he does, he blinds the Basilisk. Third. Fourth, he heals Harry. Fifth, he goes and he gets the diary. And again, is Fawkes sentient? How does he know that he should bring Harry the diary? I need more about Fawkes. I need to know more about phoenixes because this is really interesting and I don't know how he does it. But yeah, he brings Harry the diary. Here's the diary, and just like throws it on him. And Harry, we're just gonna act out this scene, okay? Harry gets the diary. He has the Basilisk fang and he's like, and a Horcrux has just been destroyed. I just need to bring that up again because this is important. And Riddle dies or whatever. A piece of Voldemort's soul dies, and yeah, Harry is left there with a messy diary and Tom Riddle is gone. That is actually where we're gonna end our video today. I know that we're not at the end of the chapter, but that just felt like a really good stopping point, and I feel like the end of chapter 17 and chapter 18 can really be like pushed together because all we have from this point is them getting out of the chamber and going to McGonagall's office. So we're gonna join that in with chapter 18 next week. But for now, let's read our last paragraph, which is actually just a paragraph in the middle of chapter 17. There was a long, dreadful, piercing scream. Ink spurted out of the diary in torrents, streaming over Harry's hands, flooding the floor. Riddle was writhing and twisting, screaming and flailing, and then he had gone. Harry's wand fell to the floor with a clatter, and there was silence. Silence except for the steady drip, drip of ink still oozing from the diary. The basilisk venom had burned a sizzling hole right through it. Oh, what a great time to end. Like, wow. That was a rush. So what a chapter. We find out about Tom Riddle, Harry defeats the basilisk, and next chapter holds a nice Dumbledore talk, which, as you guys know, is one of my favorite parts of the books. I love every time we get to talk to Dumbledore and he explains what the heck is going on. But next week is going to be particularly interesting because we're going to be kind of diving into a little bit about what I suspect Dumbledore knows at this point about the diary and the pieces that he might be connecting as well. So yeah, that's going to be next week as well. So get ready for our end of the year celebration. I'll probably have a robe on again or something. I don't know, like, we got to celebrate the end of year feast even when we don't have it. It'll be our end of the book feast or something. So yeah, get ready for that. We're gonna have a really fun time and we'll be covering chapter 18, our last chapter of book 2, and I'm kind of sad because this one has been very fun. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have any other Harry Potter fans in your life, we're about to start a new book. So bring them in on the ride and you'll have someone to talk about Harry Potter with. I hope you're having a great December so far, and I will see you next week to talk about chapter 18. Goodbye.